Uh, I am Professor S.A. Katre from the University of Pune, and I will be giving lectures on the course Number Theory, in which topics in elementary number theory will be discussed. This course is an e-learning course sponsored by MHRD, Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India, and this course is run in Pune with the cooperation of Bhaskaracharya Pratishthan, which is an institute of mathematics in Pune, and the other three centers, that is Abhyuday Inamdar College, SP College, and Department of Mathematics, University of Pune. Number theory has been one of the most fascinating topics in the development of mathematics. Numbers and geometry, these are basic objects of study, and a lot of mathematics has been developed while understanding these two basic topics. Regarding numbers, there is a famous quote by a well-known mathematician, Leopold Kronecker. Leopold Kronecker was a mathematician in the 19th century. He lived during 1823 to 1891. His famous statement regarding numbers is, God created natural numbers and the rest is the work of man. This statement we can use and say that we can base our study of the number system starting with the natural numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Elementary number theory studies properties of natural numbers, that is positive integers, and also integers. These natural numbers are written in the decimal system, and decimal system, as all of us know, is a gift of Indians to the world. Apart from this, the discovery of zero is attributed to Indian mathematicians, and also negative numbers. Negative numbers were used by Indian mathematicians when they were talking about loan. Dhana and Runa, these were the concepts used by Indian mathematicians. Runa, that is somebody has borrowed some money, so the person has negative money with him. Properties of divisibility of natural numbers have been studied for a long time. For example, divisibility by 3 or 9, there is a simple test for this in terms of the sum of the digits. So, a natural number, that's a positive integer, is divisible by 3 or 9 if the sum of the digits of the number is divisible by 3, respectively 9. And we have similar tests of divisibility by other numbers, specifically prime numbers, which we shall consider. So the test of divisibility by 11, for example, is that you take a number like 9 to 4. Here you consider the alternate sum of the digits, 9 minus 2 plus 4. Here this is actually 11 and this is a number divisible by 11. Whenever you start with a number, take the alternate sum of digits and that sum is divisible by 11, the given number is divisible by 11. If this alternate sum is large, you can again use the same test for the sum that you have obtained, and from that you can infer about the original number. Apart from this, many other problems were considered and solutions of equations in integers. This is another topic of study. So solutions of equations in integers. One considers a specific equation like x square plus y square equal to z square. Does this have a solution in integers? And as we know, we have solutions like 3 square plus 4 square equal to 5 square. Five square plus 12 square equal to 13 square. Such solutions were found. How many solutions are there for this equation in integers? If you take more difficult equation, does it have a solution like x cube plus y cube equal to z cube? What happens for this? X cube plus y cube equal to z cube. Does it have solution in integers? X raised to 4 plus y raised to 4 equal to z raised to 4. These are curiosities. Once you get solutions to a simple equation like x square plus y square equal to z square, one tries solutions for a slightly difficult equation like this. And mathematicians and many other amateurs who tried this, they were not able to get a solution for an equation other than what are called trivial solutions. Like if I take y equal to 0, then it would mean x cube equal to z cube. And then if I take say 1 cube plus 0 cube equal to 1 cube, or so that is the solution where you are taking one of the values as 0. But if you want a solution in positive integers or natural numbers, you don't get a solution. Such a result was proposed by Fermat, a French mathematician, and Fermat made a conjecture. He thought that he has a solution to this problem. He said that if n is bigger or equal to 3, the equation x raised to n plus y raised to n equal to z raised to n has no solution in positive integers. If n is bigger or equal to 3. So it means that a cube cannot be broken up into two cubes. You cannot write a cube as a sum of two cubes. A fourth power, you cannot write as a sum of two fourth powers. And so what is true for n equal to 2 is no longer true when n is at least 3 or more. This was a long-standing problem. Fermat himself gave a proof of this when n is equal to 4. And he thought that he had a solution. However, ultimately the problem was solved in the 20th century. So, in 1994, the British mathematician Andrew Wiles proved this result for all n, proved that for n bigger or equal to 3, x raised to n plus y raised to n equal to z raised to n has no solution in positive integers. This result is called as Fermat's last theorem, and the proof of this result is very advanced. It uses some difficult techniques in mathematics, and these techniques were not known at the time of Fermat. And so people believe that although Fermat said that he had a solution to this problem, it is just impossible that Fermat really had a solution. So many such problems in number theory are there which are very simple to state, but the proof of these results is extremely difficult. Sometimes one doesn't know whether the result is true or not. An example is Goldbach conjecture. This is also a conjecture which is very simple to state. So if you take an even number which is bigger than 2, so the conjecture is every even natural number, you can say just a even number bigger than 2. So it's a natural number bigger than 2 can be written as a sum of 2 primes. Can be written as a sum of two primes. An example is you start with 4 itself. 4 is 2 plus 2. If you take 6, 3 plus 3. If you take 8, that is 5 plus 3, and so on. People have got some results which are close to this, but the mathematicians have not been able to prove this result so far. This is an example of a result which is simple to state but difficult to prove. There have been some other equations of degree 2. An example is x square minus dy square equal to 1. This is an equation in two variables x and y, where d is a non-square. This equation is called as Pell's equation. We call it as Brahmagupta Bhaskara equation. The reason for that is that Brahmagupta, he gave a method of finding a new solution of this from a known solution. That is, he gave a recurrence relation for generating solutions of this. So Brahmagupta gave a recurrence relation which generates solutions of this equation. So Brahmagupta was a mathematician of 7th century. And Bhaskara was a mathematician of 12th century. He gave a method to get at least one solution, one non-trivial solution of this equation. So Bhaskara he gave a method which is called cyclic method. Cyclic, he called it a Chakraval method, which gives a non-trivial solution of the equation. So Bhaskara gave a method, Chakravala Paddhat, cyclic method, which gives a non-trivial solution. Once you get one solution, you can generate many solutions by the recurrence relation that is given by Brahmagupta. Later on, this equation, which was erroneously called as Pell's equation, it was studied by Western mathematicians, and they gave still better methods. One method based on continued fractions was given by Lagrange and other mathematicians. However, Bhaskaracharya was the first mathematician whose solution is in the written form. Interesting that this specific equation is a second degree equation and simplest of its kind. Probably it was considered by many mathematicians in different contexts. So one of the greatest mathematicians of ancient times, that is Archimedes. Archimedes he lived in 287 to 212 BC. And one of his problems, which is called as the cattle problem, that problem led to an interesting equation. This equation is like this. This equation is x square minus, now dy square. D has this value 4729494 y square equal to 1. If you can solve this equation, then you can solve the cattle problem proposed by Archimedes. And these equations, x square minus dy square equal to 1, they have a very peculiar property. Even for small values of d, the smallest solution can be extremely large. And for this specific equation, the smallest solution was found in 1880. Probably Archimedes himself, I think, was not able to find out the smallest solution for this. That is almost clear by the size of the smallest solution. And the smallest solution which was found by these researchers, one is Krumbiegel and another is Amthor. These obtained the smallest solution obtained. The smallest solution. This smallest solution has, you cannot believe, 206545, that many digits. So the smallest solution is really very huge, and one may have a thought that really this has no solution, because one tries and tries and one is not successful, because the smallest solution, non-trivial solution, is very large. So such problems have been considered by mathematicians of different times. Bhaskara, he has considered d equal to 61, he has given a solution. D equal to 61 was considered by Fermat also. It is interesting that the same number is there. These problems are called divergent problems. The problems where you have some polynomial equation in 2-3 variables, and you seek for a solution in integers, natural numbers or integers. So such problems are called Diophantine problems, where we are interested in solutions in natural numbers or integers, and sometimes one also seeks solutions in rational numbers. And the name of Diophantus of Alexandria was given to these problems. Diophantus of Alexandria. So he was a Greek mathematician who lived in the 3rd century BC, or 3rd century. He lived in the 3rd century, and after him such problems were given the name Diophantine problems. Among the natural numbers, there are some special numbers which are called as prime numbers. So prime numbers these are the numbers like 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13 and so on. These are some special natural numbers. They have the property that these numbers cannot be written as products of smaller positive integers. So these are natural numbers which cannot be written as products of smaller positive integers. These were studied in a great deal from ancient times, like Euclid. Euclid, he was an ancient Greek mathematician who lived around 350 BC. So he was a Greek mathematician. And he was probably the first person who knew that the number of such prime numbers is infinite. So there are, this is Euclid's theorem, we can say. The number, so there are infinitely many prime numbers. This was proved by Euclid in a very simple manner. And these prime numbers are building blocks for natural numbers. And we have the fundamental theorem of arithmetic. So which says that positive integers bigger than these integers bigger than 1, that is natural numbers bigger than 1, bigger than 1 can be written uniquely as products of powers of prime numbers apart from the order. The uniqueness is except for the order in which the prime powers are written. Like 20, you can write as 2 raised to 2 multiplied by 5. You may also write it as 5 multiplied by 2 raised to 2. So you can only change the order, but otherwise the prime numbers and their powers which are appearing in the factorization, they are unique. That's what the fundamental, and that's why these prime numbers are called as building blocks for natural numbers. There are many problems which can be done using this basic theorem, fundamental theorem of arithmetic. Euclid knew that the number root 2 is not rational. That is, there is no rational number whose square is 2. And more generally, if you take a number a, and a is not a perfect square or perfect nth power, like 2 is not a perfect square, it is not a square of an integer. If you take such an integer, its square root is not rational, so we call such a number as irrational. So if a is a number which is not a perfect nth power, then you can consider this number which is nth root of a. This is not rational. Nth root of a is not rational. The proof of this thing and this thing, that this is not rational, they are similar. The basic idea is the fundamental theorem of arithmetic. That is, you try to write, suppose this is rational, then what happens? So, rational number means a number which you can write in the form, let us say C upon D, C and D are integers and D is not equal to 0. So, suppose you have nth root of A, you are able to write suppose as C upon D. C and D are integers, CD integers, and D you can take to be a positive integer. In this case, of course, C will also be a positive integer. We are having in mind the positive nth root of the number A. So in that case, suppose you take nth powers of both sides. Suppose you take nth powers of both sides, what do you get? So you get A is equal to C raised to n upon D raised to n. Multiply, you get A into D raised to n is equal to C raised to n. Now, if you factorize C, D and A into products of prime powers, then what? You see that A is not an nth power. That is known to us. That means there is a prime, let us say P, such that in the factorization of A, that prime number P appears with some power. That power is not a multiple of n. When you have an nth power of some number, some natural number, then what happens? If P divides that number, that nth power, then the power of that P appearing in that nth power, that must obviously be a multiple of n. So now you see that such a prime divisor of A you take, on the left hand side you will see that the power of P that is there, that is not divisible by the number n. Whereas here if that P will be there on this side also, and then the power of that p will be divisible by n. And that means we do not have uniqueness of writing this number, okay, as a product of prime powers. And that means the assumption must be incorrect. Assumption is that this you can write as c upon d. Okay. That means nth root of a is not a rational number. So this fact essentially was known to Euclid. And so development of the theory of numbers had started from ancient times. There are some other problems which I would like to mention. Some interesting results which went to recreational mathematics also are there. Some results are of theoretical importance. So one of the notable results about natural numbers is Lagrange's theorem, J.L. Lagrange. J.L. Lagrange, he was one of the persons who gave a solution to the Pell's equation. He lived during 1736 to 1813. He has a very interesting theorem about natural numbers. So Lagrange's theorem. It is called four-square theorem. It's a very interesting theorem. This says every positive integer is a sum of at most 4 squares. Given a number n, you can write it as a square plus b square plus c square plus d square, where now I am taking a, b, c, d in z. Z is the set of all integers. Z is the set of all integers. I am writing n as a sum of 4 squares. Here I am using 0 also. So if sometimes 3 squares are there, I can write the fourth one as 0. But if you do not want to use 0, then you have to say it is n is a sum of at most 4 squares. So a square like 4 I can write as 2 square plus 0 square plus 0 square plus 0 square. Sum of 4 squares of integers. Or you say it is a square, so only 1 square is sufficient for that. And this is a very interesting result observed by mathematicians or even amateurs. So you can try some other number like 19. How will you write 19 as a sum of 4 squares? So 4 square plus 1 square plus 1 square plus 1 square. Take any positive integer, by some trial you will be able to do it. There are some methods also to do it. You can state this same problem in the form of currency notes. That is, suppose you have currency notes consisting of squares. So 1 rupee note you have, 4 rupees note, and like that, 9 rupees, 16 rupees. If you have such currency notes, then 4 currency notes will be sufficient to represent any amount, however large that amount may be. Only thing is you require too many types of currency notes, squares you want. Okay. This same thing in number 3 one considers instead of squares, cubes, fourth powers, kth powers. These problems also have been considered, and Varings, he thought that yes, why squares? You can do it with any power, and he has this Varings problem, Varings conjecture. This is also an interesting conjecture in number theory, which is proved now. He says every positive integer is a sum of 4 squares. When he mentioned this, it was not proved. In the year when he stated this, the result was proved by Lagrange. He also talked about cubes, 9 cubes. "19 biquadrates." That is fourth powers. Every positive integer is a sum of 19 fourth powers. That is what he found by experimentation. He found some numbers which require 19 biquadrates, and he thought that 19 is sufficient. But he did not give a proof of this. Proofs of these results were given later on. So he says, and so on. And so on. By that he means that if you take any k, positive integer k, you will be able to write any positive integer as a sum of some fixed number of kth powers. What is that fixed number may not be known at the beginning. One may have to work hard to find out that number. But he had done up to 19. And even this 19 biquadrate, this was unsolved for a long time. And it is interesting that this result was proved by Indian mathematicians along with some French mathematicians. So the Indian mathematician who was associated with this Varings problem is R. Balasubramanian, who is the director of Math Science, Chennai. He proved this in 1986. Solution is very recent that way. Along with two French mathematicians, Deschouet and Dress. So they did a lot of computational work, also theoretical work, and the work of Balasubramanian and Deschouet and Dress, these two were complementary to each other and they together solved this problem. Many times for such a problem, you have to show that the result is true after some stage. That stage may be very large, and before that you have to do it by manual calculations or some computer. So they used some method called circle method in complex analysis, which was proposed by Hardy, Ramanujan and Littlewood. So again the name of Ramanujan is involved in this circle method, and lot of Indians, many Indians, they have solved a number of problems in number theory. So this gives you some idea of the problems that are considered in number theory. About, I mentioned Goldbach conjecture. Another interesting result about prime numbers is the distribution of primes. How many primes are there? So number of primes is infinite. But how many primes are there in the sense that given some number x, up to that number, how many primes are expected? Is there some formula? If there is no formula, is there some estimate? So that was some experiments for this also were done by many mathematicians, and Gauss also has given an estimate, and we have this famous prime number theorem which says that the number of primes less than or equal to x, suppose it is denoted by pi of x. Number of primes less than or equal to x. Denote this number by pi of x. Then pi x, the theorem says pi of x is asymptotic to x upon log x. This equivalent to, that symbol is for asymptotic to. So it means that as it tends to infinity, this and this, they are close. Close in what sense? That is, pi x divided by x upon log x tends to 1 as x tends to infinity. That is the meaning. That gives you some idea about number of primes up to x. Pi x upon x by log x tends to 1 as x tends to infinity. Here log is with respect to the natural base e. Again, this result was unproved for a long time, and mathematicians Hadamard and Dallawala-Poussin they proved this independently, towards the end of the 19th century. And although it is a result about prime numbers, the methods that were used for this, for the proof of this theorem, they were from complex analysis. Methods from complex analysis, such as contour integration, analytic continuation, such methods were used. So this is a peculiarity about these natural numbers, that many problems are there which are easy to state. However, the proof requires techniques from many other subjects. So subjects from mathematics, very diversified areas of mathematics, are used. So techniques for many problems in number theory, one uses techniques from linear algebra, complex analysis, geometry, topology. Techniques from such diversified areas have been used to prove some results about natural numbers. There are very basic principles which are used every now and then. One of them is well ordering principle about numbers, natural numbers. This says that every non-empty subset of natural numbers has a least element. This is well ordering principle for natural numbers. And this is equivalent to the principle of mathematical induction. This is equivalent to the principle of mathematical induction, which says that you have a subset of natural numbers. So let us denote the set of natural numbers by n, and take S to be a subset of this. Let S be a subset of natural numbers such that 1 belongs to S and n belongs to S implies n plus 1 belongs to S. So first requirement is 1 is in this subset. Second requirement is if n is in S, then n plus 1 is in S. Then this S is the same as the set of all natural numbers. This is the principle of mathematical induction, which is used in many problems. There are also a number of results in modern group theory, and these results come from properties of congruences. So many results in modern group theory have their roots in properties and theorems about congruences of integers. These congruences will be studied in the elementary number theory course. The concept of congruence was introduced by C.F. Gauss. C.F. Gauss is also one of the greatest mathematicians of all time. He lived in 1777 to 1855. He had a famous book which he wrote in 1801, that is Disquisitiones Arithmeticae. In this book, he introduced the concept of congruences, namely, A is congruent to B mod M, means M divides A minus B. So M is a positive integer, A and B are integers. We will say that A is congruent to B mod M provided M divides A minus B. So the concept of congruences is based on the concept of divisibility. So we will discuss properties of divisibility in the next lecture.